There is a question that lingers quietly in the background of your life, even if you've never put words to it. Why do you keep emotional distance even from people you care about? Why do you hesitate before opening up, pull back when things get intense, or feel an invisible wall rise the moment someone tries to get too close? You might tell yourself you're independent, self-sufficient, or just private, and maybe that is partly true, but emotional distance rarely comes from nowhere. It forms slowly, deliberately, as a response to something your system learned long before you consciously chose it. Most people assume emotional distance means you don't care enough, that you're detached, cold, or afraid of intimacy. But that assumption misses something essential. Emotional distance is rarely about lack of feeling. More often, it is about too much feeling in the past. It is not indifference. It is a protection. At some point, your emotional openness had consequences. Maybe you were misunderstood when you tried to explain yourself. Maybe your vulnerability was ignored, minimized, or used against you. Maybe you learned that expressing needs led to disappointment instead of support. These experiences don't always register as trauma in the dramatic sense. Sometimes they get repeated, subtle, and precisely because they're subtle, they're powerful. Your nervous system learned a lesson: closeness equals risk. So it adapted. Emotional distance is an adaptive strategy. It is your system saying, I will engage, but only to a certain depth. I will care, but not so much that I lose myself. I will connect, but I won't expose everything. This strategy allows you to function, to relate, to move through life without constantly opening old wounds. It is not a flaw. It is a form of intelligence. The problem is that what once protected you can later limit you. Many people who keep emotional distance are deeply empathetic. They feel things intensely. That intensity is precisely why they learn to regulate access to their inner world. When you feel deeply, emotional chaos is not just uncomfortable. It is overwhelming. Distance becomes a way to survive without shutting down entirely. This is why emotional distance often coexists with competence. You can be reliable, supportive, thoughtful, even loving, while still holding part of yourself back. You show up, you help, you listen, but you early reveal the parts of you that feel most vulnerable, uncertain, or tender. Those parts stay guarded, and guarding doesn't always feel like fear. Sometimes it feels like calm. There is a misconception that emotionally distant people are disconnected from themselves. In reality, many are hyper-aware. They monitor their internal state constantly. They notice shifts in mood, tone, and energy. They sense when a situation is becoming emotionally charged, and when it does, they instinctively step back. Not because they don't care, but because they care enough to avoid losing control. Emotional distance gives you time to think before reacting, time to process privately, time to regain balance. It creates a buffer between stimulus and response, and that buffer can feel like stability. Another reason you keep emotional distance is because you value autonomy. Emotional closeness often comes with expectations to respond a certain way, to prioritize someone else's feelings, to be available and demand. If you've ever felt emotionally responsible for a certain distance can feel like freedom. It allows you to maintain a sense of self that isn't constantly pulled outward. People who grew up needing to be a strong one, second one, or ser reliable one often develop emotional distance naturally. They learned that the role was to contain emotion, not express it. Over time, containment became identity. You don't just manage emotions. You live inside that management. There is also an element of trust involved. Emotional closeness requires trust not just in others, but in your ability to handle what closeness brings up. If intimacy historically led to overwhelm, conflict, or loss of control, distance feels safer. It reduces unpredictability. It keeps emotional intensity within manageable limits. This is why emotional distance often increases when relationships deepen. Surface level connection feels fine, but as expectations grow, as vulnerability is requested, something inside you tightens, not because you don't want closeness, but because closeness activates old patterns your system hasn't forgotten. You may notice that your good at being there for others increases, but struggle to share your own. That is not accidental. Supporting others allows you to stay in a position of control. Being supported requires sende. Emotional distance preserves agency. Another misunderstood aspect of emotional distance is that it often comes with strong internal values. You care about integrity, honesty, and authenticity. You don't want to share emotions performatively or prematurely. You want depth, not exposure. So you wait, you observe, you test for safety. And if safety doesn't feel certain, you remain guarded. This selectivity can make you appear hard to read. People may feel close to you without really knowing you. They sense depth, but can't access it, and that can create tension. Others may push for more openness, Interpreting your distance as rejection. This reinforces your instinct to pull back. It becomes a loop. Emotional distance is also reinforced by modern life. Constant connectivity, oversharing, and emotional noise make restraint feel like sanity. When everyone is broadcasting their inner world, choosing silence feels grounding. You protect your inner life by keeping it private. That privacy becomes a form of self-respect. But over time, emotional distance can bleed into emotional isolation. Not because you want to be alone, but because the distance that once protected you now keeps a desertarmese length even when you want closeness. You may feel understood intellectually but unseen emotionally, connected but not fully known. This is where confusion sets in. You might ask yourself why intimacy feels unsatisfying, or why relationships plateau. Sense is not that you're incapable of closeness. It is that closeness requires recalibrating safety. Safety is a core issue beneath emotional distance. Your system needs evidence that vulnerability will not lead to overwhelm, abandonment, or loss of self. And the evidence doesn't come from logic. It comes from experience. Repeated, consistent experiences have been met rather than managed. Respected rather than pressured. Emotional distance softens when safety accumulates. Another reason you keep emotional distance is because you're afraid of abandoning others. If you learn daily that your emotions were too much or that expressing needs cause stress, you may have internalized the belief that keeping distance is kindness. You protect others by protecting yourself. You carry things alone so no one else has to. This belief is rarely conscious, but it is powerful. You might also notice that you open up more easily to strangers than to people closer to you. This seems contradictory, but it makes sense. Strangers have no ongoing expectations. There is no risk of disappointing them long term. Emotional distance relaxes when there is less to lose. With people WHOMT. Stakes are high. Emotional distance is also tied to control. When you share less, you retain narrative authority. Others can't misinterpret what they don't know. They can't judge what you don't reveal. This control can feel stabilizing, especially if you've been misunderstood before. But control and connection exist in tension. The more you hold one, the less you experience the other. Understanding why you keep emotional distance is not about forcing yourself to change. It is about recognizing the intelligence behind the behavior. Distance exists for a reason. It protected you when something else wasn't available. Safety, consistency. Understanding the goal is not to eliminate distance. It is to make it flexible. Healthy emotional distance is a boundary you can adjust. Unhealthy distance is a wall you can't allow even when you want to. The difference lies in choice. As you begin to understand your patterns, you may notice moments when distance is no longer serving you, when you want to share but don't know how, when you crave closeness but freeze renewed approaches. These moments are not failures. They are signals that your system is ready for something new. Change doesn't happen by tearing down defenses. It happens by offering alternatives. Your system learned distance because it worked. It will release it when something else works better. That something else is safety, built slowly, with the right people, in the right context, without pressure. If this resonates deeply, it is because you believe it, and understanding it matters, because without understanding, emotional distance can turn into self-blame. You might think you're broken, avoidant, or incapable of intimacy. You're not. You adapted intelligently to what you were given. Staying connected to insights like this helps you move from judgment to curiosity. And staying subscribed isn't about more information, it is about staying oriented toward self-understanding instead of self-criticism. Emotional distance doesn't mean you're close, it means you're careful, and care, when understood, can become openness again. One of the most difficult things to accept about emotional distance is that it often works. It reduces chaos. It prevents emotional spirals. It keeps relationships manageable. And because it works, your system keeps using it. There is no internal alarm telling you it is a time to change. On the contrary, emotional distance often feels like maturity, like composure, like strength. That is why so many people who keep emotional distance don't see it as a problem. They see it as who they are. But identity is often built on adaptation. When emotional distance becomes part of your identity, it is no longer just a strategy you use. It is a lens through which you experience closeness. You don't ask, do I feel safe right now? You assume you don't. Unless proven otherwise, distance becomes a default, not a choice. This is where subtle suffering begins. Because while emotional distance protects you from pain, it also filters joy. It adds emotional color. Relationships feel stable but muted. You may feel appreciated but not fully known, loved, but at a distance. And over time, this creates a quiet loneliness that is hard to explain, even to yourself. You're not alone. You're just not fully there. Another reason emotional distance persists is because it is reinforced by praise. People tell you you're so calm, so grounded, so strong. They admire your composure. They rely on your steadiness. And that feedback reinforces a behavior. You become when WHO doesn't fall apart. WHO doesn't need match. WHO doesn't for support. But every role comes with a cost. When you're consistently the emotionally contained one, there is a little room for your own needs. You may not even recognize them anymore. Distance becomes so familiar that closeness feels foreign, even intrusive. This is why emotional distance often coexists with difficulty receiving care. Compliments feel awkward. Support feels unnecessary. Help feels like weakness. You're more comfortable giving than receiving. Because giving keeps you in control. Receiving requires openness. Openness requires risk. And risk is exactly what emotional distance was designed to minimize. There is also a temporal aspect too. Emotional distance. It is not just about the present. It is about the future. Getting close means investing emotionally. And investment implies potential loss. Loss of connection. Loss of stability. Loss of control. Distance limits the potential loss. If you've experienced abrupt endings, betrayals, or emotional abandonment, even subtly, your system-lended attachment can disappear without warning. Distance becomes insurance. This is why emotional distance often increases after loss, even when you want connection again. Part of you remembers the past. Another overlooked factor is emotional asymmetry. You may have been more emotionally aware or sensitive than the people on you growing up. You noticed tension as ignored. You felt things more intensely, without support to process that intensity. You learned to regulate alone. Distance helped you avoid overwhelming both yourself and others. Highly sensitive people often develop emotional distance not because they lack emotion, but because they have too much habit. Distance becomes a volume control. This also explains why emotional distance can coexist with deep internal emotional lives. You may feel things profoundly, but privately, you process internally. You reflect, you analyze, you rarely externalize your emotion unless you reset and it will be received safely. To others, this looks like detachment. To you, it feels like discretion. Emotional distance also protects narrative coherence. When you don't share everything, you maintain a stable sense of self. You're not constantly negotiating your identity through others' reactions. This can feel grounding, especially if you've experienced emotional invalidation before. But again, grounding can turn into isolation if it is rigid. Rigid emotional distance doesn't adapt to context. It stays in place even when safety is present, even when you want closeness, even when the cost of distance begins to outweigh the benefit. The tese usually when the question is why do we feel disconnected even when things are good? The answer is not that you're incapable of intimacy. It is that your system has updated its threat. Assessment your body and emotional distance in a different time and the different conditions. It doesn't automatically know that things have changed. Updating that learning requires experience, not insight. You can understand all of this intellectually and still feel stuck. That is normal. Emotional distance is not dissolved by insight alone. It is often through repeated experiences of safe connection that do not overwhelm you or demand immediate vulnerability. This is why forcing yourself to open up more rarely works. It creates pressure. Pressure triggers the very defenses you're trying to dismantle. Instead, emotional distance shifts when you feel allowed to be partial, to share a little, then retreat, to test, then pause, to open a door without throwing yourself into serum. Healthy closeness respects spacing. Another reason emotional distance is so persistent is because it is invisible. There is no dramatic symptom, no obvious crisis. You're functioning, you're regulating, you're surviving. The cost is internal, subtle, cumulative. You may notice it as emotional fatigue, as boredom in relationships, as a sense that something is missing but you can't name it, as difficulty accessing your vulnerability even when you want to. These are not signs of deficiency. They are signals of misalignment. Your system is asking for recalibration. Recalibration doesn't mean becoming emotionally exposed or dependent. It means learning that closeness doesn't have to mean loss of self, that you can remain grounded while being known. That is a new skill, not a personality change. One of the most powerful shifts happens when you stop seeing emotional distance as something to eliminate and start seeing it as something to negotiate. Distance becomes a dial, not a switch. You learn when to turn it down slightly and when to turn it back up. Choice returns. Choice is the mark of health. When emotional distance is automatic, it limits you. When it is chosen, it protects you without isolating you. This distinction is subtle, but life-changing. You may also notice that emotional distance decreases naturally in certain environments, with certain people, in certain moments. This tells you something important. Distance is not fixed. ETS. Contextual, your system already knows how to soften. It just doesn't do it everywhere. Paying attention to where you feel more open gives you clues about safety, about compatibility, about trust. Emotional distance is random. It is responsive. Understanding this reduces shame. You stop seeing yourself as emotionally unavailable and start seeing yourself as emotionally selective. Selectivity is not a flaw. Another key aspect is grief. Many emotionally distant people are carrying unacknowledged grief for a version of themselves that was more open, more spontaneous, more emotionally expressive. Distance can feel like a loss of vitality. That grief decepts space, but it also decepts context. You didn't lose that version of yourself for no reason. You adapted, and adaptation is not failure. The question now is not, how do we get back to who he was? But WHOM becoming with what evolved. Emotional distance doesn't have to disappear for intimacy to grow. It has to become flexible. Flexibility allows you to stay present even when emotions rise. It allows you to stay connected without flooding. It allows you to retreat without disappearing. This is emotional maturity. If you really listen into this and recognizing yourself, it is important to hear this clearly. You are not broken. You are not cold. You are not incapable of closeness. You developed emotional distance because it helped you survive something that required it. Now, your task is not to tear it down, but to renegotiate it. And that renegotiation happens slowly, with the right people, in the right moments, without forcing, without pressure, without shame. Staying connected to this level of understanding matters. Because emotional distance often becomes self-judgment when misunderstood. And staying subscribed isn't about consuming more content, it is about staying aligned with insight that replaces judgment. With compassion, emotional distance is not the enemy of connection, rigidity is, when distance becomes flexible. Intimacy becomes possible, not dramatic intimacy, not overwhelming intimacy, but steady, grounded, sustainable closeness, the kind that doesn't cost you yourself. And that is why you keep emotional distance, not because you don't want connection, but because you learned at some point that connection required caution. Now you get to decide slowly and consciously where caution is still needed and where it can finally soften.